so far, but I can't lose it.
Sim racers from around the globe, honoring a revolutionary era of open-wheel racing. With a beast not easily tamed, roaring around legendary circuits at breakneck speed. When engineers and drivers push boundaries, sometimes too far. When heroes muscled roaring beast wheel to wheel around the hallowed grounds. A time when the only driver aids were his 2 feet. Perfect combination of man, machine, and speed. Experience the competition and the glory of the early 80s IndyCar action. The Lionheart Retro Series, presented by Sim Experience, starts now.
After a thrilling battle on the streets of Long Beach, the Lionheart Retro Series has headed east to the Badger State. Britain has Silverstone, Australia has Phillip Island, but for race fans in the United States, a pilgrimage to America's National Park of Speed is a rite of passage. With just 2 races left in 2021, the championship has come down to the wire, and with just a double-point showdown at the Auto Club Speedway left after 31 laps at Elkhart Lake, today marks one final opportunity to build up momentum heading into the championship showdown. This is Road America, and this is the Sim Experience Grand Prix of Road America, presented by Carnox. Hello and welcome back to RaceSpot TV and coverage of the 2021 Lionheart Retro Series. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, delighted to be joined by fellow AK Andrew Kinsella in the RaceSpot TV commentary booth. You can follow along with live timing and scoring by heading to racespot.tv/Indy. Follow along thanks to our partners at ATVO with your favorite team and drivers in today's race. Let's dive straight into our HyperX pre-race show because the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15 for 15% off all orders. Andrew, it was a Royal Rumble on the streets of Long Beach. That's what you get every time you go racing at a street circuit. But it was a race in which championship implications very much the story of the race. Matt Taylor mixed up an early race incident, the championship leader dropping some valuable points to his main championship rivals, but with the double points coming up, he knows one final road course, one final opportunity to build his momentum up to try and secure his first Lionheart title.
One final shot for all three of the drivers in this championship fight to put their stamp on this championship before the finale. And what better place to do it than Road America, as you mentioned, the National Park of Speed in America. And I would say one of the best racetracks, not only in North America, but in the world. And what a different track that we have than 1 week ago at Long Beach, where Long Beach was a knockdown street fight. This is a fast-flowing track where the draft and speed is the name of the game. You're going to see lots of passing, lots of back and forth action, lots of people trying to outbreak each other. This is going to be a fantastic race here today, Arjuna.
And just a reminder, even though the graphic is showing that we're at Long Beach, no, we're not. 7 days after the Rumble at Long Beach, Road America, it's going to be a full month before that season finale. A long time for championship favorites to stew in the results of today's race. Here's a look at your driver standings presented by the Sim Experience AccuForce Pro V2. Aaron Morgan, as a result of Mike Rasmussen having his own issues, has leapfrogged Rasmussen into second spot. It's an Avatar Order Racing 1 and 2. 3 drivers separated by 58 points. A reminder that a race victory today is worth 60 points, but with only 18 cars on the grid, even if Matt Taylor has more misfortune, he can barely buy some luck at this point in time across all 3 of the Lionheart sanctioned competition, would still be in a good position. Drop weeks would cycle in his favor. Not just the battle for the top 3 though, of course. Andrew, we've got a really interesting fight between 3 rookies for 4th in the championship. David Sirois, who we thought coming into the season would be a road course ace, has very much become an oval specialist as well. He's fighting with Michael O'Brien, who just missed out on victory 7 days ago, and Chris Fowler in the AeroX Racing number 20.
It's been incredible to watch the evolution of David Sirois throughout this year. As you mentioned, he had not really raced this car on an oval at all before he came into the Lionheart Retro Series, but as we've seen, he has mastered ovals in this car, especially as you saw on the high banks of Michigan. And we are going in just over a month's time for the finale to the sister track of Michigan in Auto Club in Fontana, California. So I'm very interested to see how David Sirois handles that finale. But before he gets there, he has to deal with Road America tonight. And he has been very fast so far in practice, Arjuna. He is at the top of the time standings in practice. So if ever he is going to break out and potentially get one of his first wins here in Lionheart, it might be here today.
He had 3 pole positions on the trot, all on ovals: Iowa, Worldwide Technology Raceway, and then the race that Andrew was mentioning at Michigan, the last oval that we had before this run of road courses to lead to our championship climax. Here's a look at your rookie standings presented by Butt Kicker, and I did the rough math coming into this race, with the gap being almost 170 points from Matt Taylor to Chris Fowler. If Taylor secures 10 points, which he's going to do today given the size of grid we have in store for us, Taylor will officially be your Rookie of the Year. Definitely not a rookie though to Lionheart competition. Plenty of exciting stuff still going on, though, in this championship. Let's take a look at the team standings where, because Avatar Order Racing, we say this every week, they've been dominant, they've been consistent. They made sure that all 3 of their drivers, Michael O'Brien, Matt Taylor, and Aaron Morgan, are in the top 10, fighting for victories, fighting for podiums. They are your team's champions already. Lavoie Motorsports have managed to build up some buffer to AeroX Racing. They're missing Jean-Francois Matt once more here today, Andrew, so only 2 cars in the action for Lavoie Motorsports. They do need to make sure they don't slip up with 2 races left to go.
Absolutely, but I do believe that AeroX is also missing a driver, as I do not see DJ Clark on the grid either, Arjuna, so that does level it out just a little bit. But it's been a seesaw battle between Lavoie Motorsports and AeroX, as well as Graphics LC Motorsports, currently in 4th place, but they've been up as high as 2nd as well at certain points in this season. So these 3 teams, even though Avatar sort of run away with it at the top, they've been battling with each other all season, and I expect that to continue here today and all the way into the finale in 1 month's time.
And with that said, we'll make our way over to the series details presented by Minus 273, the premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of a breathable poly spandex. Whether you're a kart or a sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz, and don't forget to use the promo code Minus273LHRS15 for 15% off all orders. It's the 5th season of the Lionheart Retro Series in the 7th year of the Lionheart Racing Series. Drivers campaigning in the Lotus 79, which very much was designed to run on road courses, but has put on some incredible shows on the ovals as well. Custom fixed setup designed by the man alongside me in the RacePot TV commentary booth. Andrew, talk to us about what this setup is going to mean for these drivers. We were talking before we went live. Very minimal downforce. Draft is going to be crucial. We're going to see lots of passing as well here today.
Absolutely, Arjun. A very, very low downforce setup here today. As you know, with this car, most of the downforce does come from the underside of the car with the Venturi tunnels that the Lotus 79 pioneered way back in 1978, 1979. So what we have here today is the wings themselves are very, very raked back and very low angle of attack, low downforce. So that means that the aero wash that can sometimes happen with these cars that we saw at places like Silverstone, that's gone here today. The cars are going to be able to follow really, really close, and those long, long straights, that's going to mean that there's going to be lots of draft, lots of passing, lots of late braking opportunities, and I think that it's going to be a fantastic race here tonight.
And what a fantastic facility is as well. You mentioned it might be one of the best in the world, but it's deceptively tricky. I think that's the thing. You see 90-degree corners and you think, oh, it can't be that hard. But they're all different. Some are uphill, some are downhill. Mastering those intricacies, those nuances of a track like this, going to be crucial. It's our 5th race here in the America's National Park of Speed in this Lotus 79. It's been a staple of the series since the season opener. Only 5 drivers have led laps in the 4 previous races in Elkhart Lake. That is likely to change today, given what we were talking about, where the setup is going to encourage passing. Most lead changes so far in history, 3. Just 3. Don't think we're going to see that today. Pole position kind of builds into what I was just mentioning there. Has only missed out on HyperX victory lane once, which was back in Season 1 when Ryan Otis finished 2nd behind newly minted 4-time champion Adam Blocker in the Lionheart IndyCar Series. It's a race that's also seen domination from the front. Don't expect we're going to see that today. The thing I'm interested though, Andrew, how close are we going to see the finish? 1.879 seconds, the closest finish 12 months ago. Do you think we can get a little bit closer this time around?
I think there's definitely the potential that we can get closer this time, but it's all down to the drivers here, and it's going to come down to limiting mistakes. You mentioned that this track is deceptively tricky, particularly in the braking zones. No 2 braking zones are alike, and you have to be very, very careful modulating the throttle and getting yourself slowed down, especially on some of these downhill braking zones that we have here at Road America. So I think that if we're going to have another close finish, it's going to come down to not just one driver, but several drivers keeping it clean, minimizing the mistakes, and staying in that lead draft, that lead pack. And if that all happens, I think that we're going to have a great finish here today.
So many drivers have been strong on the road courses. Here is a look at today's venue. Made sure that this is the correct track map this time around. In Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, 4.048 miles, 6.515 kilometers for what is a questionable 14 turns. But the crucial thing here, 171 feet of elevation, 52 meters. Up and down you go in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, where qualifying is underway for the drivers of the Lionheart Retro Series. 10 minutes, drivers get the track all to themselves. 4 laps to go as quick as they can when the pressure is on. And with the pressure on, it's Michael O'Brien that currently sits on pole position. But as the times come in thick and fast, David Sirot, 1,000th behind Mike Rasmussen, slides his way up into 3rd. As Matt Taylor manages to jump himself up into provisional pole. The top 4 cars, 6th hundredths of a second. Michael O'Brien steals back pole position in a much more convincing fashion, almost a quarter of a second quicker than Matt Taylor.
Yeah, that gap between O'Brien and Sirwa was just insane when you think about it. Over 4 miles of track, they were separated by 1,000th of a second. Of course, O'Brien has now gone faster, and that's what you'll see over the course of this qualifying session. This is actually probably the hardest qualifying session for all of these drivers to run. Why? Because you have 10 minutes to do essentially 5 laps. 1 warm-up lap and then 4 flying laps. And the thing about the Lotus 79, as you know, Arjuna, is that the tires come in and the fuel burns off. So the 4th lap is going to be the fastest, but you have to be very, very careful not to make any mistakes on any of your laps, because we have a 1 minute 52 second lap here for the pole. So that's maybe 10-15 seconds a margin of error there in order to make that qualifying work. So you have to be very, very careful not to make a mistake in any of your laps, even if it's the last one that really is going to make the difference for you.
That's the bias ply tires for you, that they get better. They're designed to last a full race distance, so as you wear them in, they'll go faster as you burn the fuel off, because you start with a full tank of fuel. Fixed setups, of course. No burning off the fuel, no reducing the amount of fuel you put in your car for qualifying. David Sirwa gets the rear end hanging out as he comes through the final corner, up the hill underneath the NTT bridge. What's the time going to be for the Lavoie Motorsports number 99? A 52.506 is fastest. It's a 52.372. Not good enough for pole. It is good enough for provisional 3rd position. Where are the rest of the drivers? Morgan up to 4th. Where's Taylor as he comes across the line? Doesn't improve. In fact, he went a bit slower this last time around at 54.102. So he will get 1 more lap, maybe saving the fuel tires. Let's ride on board with Matt Taylor for a lap here at Road America. Through turn 1, slide yourself down the hill into the tricky braking zone of turn 3. So easy to brake a little bit deep and usher yourself out wide. You can use the outside, the little bit extra tarmac that's there to run yourself down this very long back straightaway underneath the Sargento Bridge. One of your primary passing opportunities. Downhill braking zone. Gravity works against you. Brake just before the 200-meter sign, all the way down through the gears. Taylor misses the apex. You can cut the curb on the inside, but be careful of what he does there, almost sliding off into the grass. Uphill braking zone here. You can brake a little bit deeper because gravity's working with you this time around. Then through turn 7, almost flat in an IndyCar. Not flat here in a Lotus 79. Taylor wiggles the rear end around as through the hurry downs he goes down into the braking zone of turn 8. And that's going to be qualifying done for our championship leader, just lighting up the rear tires. Wasn't looking like the most tidy lap, to say the very least.
No, not the lap that Matt Taylor needed there at the end, because as we're going to see, I think a number of these cars are going to set a little bit faster times here. I'm looking at Chris Fowler, Aaron Morgan as potential drivers to leapfrog. Mike Rasmus is another driver of our championship leading trio that has already gone to the pits, but David Sirwa here, he's been very, very fast. Michael O'Brien has put it on pole provisionally. Can Sirwa go faster here as he comes up the hill over the start-finish line? And it is a 152.151. He is P1 for now, but Michael O'Brien is still on track.
Out of the final corner comes the 45. Pole position 7 days ago for the Australian driver. Can he do it once more? Still searching for his first career victory. He does go faster. It's a 52.071. O'Brien at the point once more. Where's Aaron Morgan? Already done with qualifying. The top 3 locked and loaded. O'Brien, Sirwa, and Morgan ready to go. Qualifying already has come to an end. Let's go trackside here in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. Let's take a look at our starting grid for the Sim Experience Grand Prix of Road America. And so here is your butt kicker starting grid. It will be Michael O'Brien on the pole position. Alongside him is going to be David Sirwa. Aaron Morgan alongside Matt Taylor. It's an all-avatar order racing row number 2 with Chris Fowler alongside Mike Rasmus. Plenty of championship hopefuls mixed up inside the top 6. David Rodriguez in 7th. He had an end-of-line penalty 7 days ago. A little bit better starting position for him this time around. He'll be alongside Isaac Snyder, with Ricky Hart and Richie Hearn rounding out the top 10. Paul Jenkins, who had some bad luck yesterday, will be alongside Alex Gouillon in the second of Lavoie Motorsports cars, trying to lock themselves into second place in this championship, the team's championship, presented by HyperX. Trevor Malone, Ariel Alanis to Independence on row 7 with Nick DeGroot and George Anzaldo 15th and 16th positions. The bright red of Danny Roberts back in 17th alongside the only driver not to set a lap time will be an end-of-line penalty as well for Chris Reagan in the silver and purple, Elite West Motorsports number 19. As mentioned, it's going to be the full pace lap here today, so plenty of time to work our way through the particulars, what's in store for us today. 31 laps. Let's very briefly touch on the strategy here, Andrew, because it's anywhere from 13 to 15 laps on the stint. Hypothetically, with the draft, you could extend it out to 17 laps to make it a one-stop race. Is anyone going to be bold enough? Today, we'll find out as we roll from the starting grid.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting strategy to make here. It's a tough stretch because this track is just so long. You really do have to save a lot more fuel than you think just to go one extra lap or two extra laps, but I think that it could be worth it for some of these drivers, particularly if you're in the back half of the top 10. I'm looking at the likes of David Rodriguez, who we know can make fuel out of nowhere. He is one potential to potentially go that extra lap and make it that one stop. Isaac Snyder maybe another one, just one of those drivers in the back half of the top 10. But if I'm Aaron Morgan, Matt Taylor, and Mike Rasmus, your championship contenders, I think you have to play it safe and go with the two-stop just because you can't afford to make a mistake and set yourself on the back foot here.
You had mentioned that if you weren't on commentary duties, you'd be racing and trying out that one-stop strategy. Let's see if anyone has the courage to try something different. If you're David Rodriguez, why not go for it? But as always, we've got featured onboards to work our way through on this long pace lap. And first up, it is David Rodriguez with the Espos Design onboard camera. Get yourself a racing identity. Visit Espo Design on Twitter. Podium, last time out for Richie Hearn, and he's got the HyperX onboard camera. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game. Third in the championship, sixth on the grid. Mike Rasmus has the Graphics Esports onboard, world-class design from the real world to virtual. Visit graphicsesports.com. And alongside him, Chris Fowler has the Chris Fowler Racing onboard camera. Join Chris Fowler on his sim racing journey through his live streams. Visit Fowler Racing on Twitch. It'll be an interesting second screen experience for you here today. A reminder as well, thanks to our partners at Dougie Beard, we have full onboard cameras for every single one of the Lotus 79 today. Wonderful track cameras that we'll see in action here on RaceBot TV as well. Prediction time, Andrew. Who's going to win here today? Don't think we're going to see domination from Michael O'Brien, even though I'm sure he would love to see it.
No, I think that this is going to be a case of anyone in that top 5, top 6 has got a shot at it today, especially if they can keep themselves out of trouble. But I really do think that with the pace that David Sirois has shown, I think that today is going to be the day that he finally makes a breakthrough here in the Lionheart Retro Series and takes that maiden win. So I'm going with your outside pole sitter, David Sirois, as my pick.
Ooh, you've stolen my pick, so I've got to keep things interesting. I'll go boring. I'll say Matt Taylor will find a way to win. It seems like he gets more comfortable when the track grips on up, and I just get this feeling that in the closing stages he'll have the confidence to rip around a bold move, work his way into the lead. It's been a busy week of Lionheart competition, Andrew. I mean, 3 races, all the penultimate races of the Speedway, IndyCar, and today the Retro Series. For drivers like Taylor and Rasmus, makes things very difficult for them.
Yeah, I did think about picking Matt Taylor because he has been very strong in the Retro Series recently, but he's had such a run of bad luck here, not only in the Retro Series, but in all 3 series, as you mentioned, and that's got to be weighing on him today. So he's got to do his best to put that behind him, but it's going to be tough for him today, I think.
And in a series like this, a championship fight like this, the pressure is never off. Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart, and this is the Sim Experience Grand Prix of Road America, presented by Carnox. For the second time in just 7 days, Michael O'Brien picks up the throttle. We are racing at America's National Park of Speed. Already, some teamwork as the Avatar Order Racing teammates sync up and get the leapfrog on David Sirwa on the start. But here comes the Canadian back down to the inside. Nothing doing there. O'Brien leads from Morgan. Matt Taylor is now going to have to try and make it an Avatar Order Racing 1, 2, and 3. But to the inside, Mike Rasmas knows he's got to follow his championship rivals up through the field, work their way through turns 3, down the back straightaway. Is there going to be any passing down into turn 5? Doesn't look as though in the top 3. It might be Chris Fowler, the first car to have a peek, as side by side for Trevor Malone in the TL34 back in the pack. And indeed, no major moves in the top 5. Other than the start, Aaron Morgan, David Sirwa switching around. Very clean. Car going a bit wide on that downhill braking zone, but great to see all 18 cars pointed in the right direction.
Really strong start from everyone in this field. There was a little bit of jogging for position. Chris Reagan is already up about 5 positions on that start. Meanwhile, back in turn 1, Richie Hearn had a little bit of a moment right in front of Ricky Harden. He did a good job to avoid Richie and has slid in front of the IndyCar, the former IndyCar driver in Richie Hearn. And other than that, it was really, really clean racing, and they've really done a good job of getting themselves sorted out here. But you'll notice, Arjuna, that no one is really separating themselves. We've got a really long line of cars here, and all of them are just sort of sitting in the draft and waiting.
I think I do think some drivers are thinking about strategy. It might not be to try a one-stopper, but it might be about saving the fuel and opening up the window and giving them a bit more strategy, because of course no tire changes means you have the flexibility to play with your time in the pits, because you are fuel limited in terms of the time. You are no longer tire limited. Across the line, 5 miles already in the books. Michael O'Brien leads the way. He was fighting with Aaron Morgan 7 days ago. Morgan came out on top with the strategy cycling in his favor. Will history repeat itself? We've got 1 hour of racing before we'll find out. Answers out on the racetrack, ready to be written in the penultimate race of the 2021 season. Looking pretty steady up at the front. Like you said, the real mover and shaker so far was Chris Reagan, who after that end-of-line penalty or rear-of-grid start has really just worked his way already now, trying to challenge Paul Jenkins further back.
Yeah, really strong start from Chris Reagan. And Jenkins himself is putting the pressure on Trevor Malone here down into turn 5. Nice move from Jenkins, but does he run a little bit wide? Here comes Malone back on the inside. It looks like Malone's got the inside lane up into turn 6 and completes the pass back on Jenkins. So nice over-under there from Trevor Malone. Lots of patience. He saw Jenkins going in just that little bit too deep, really squared off the corner and really took it right back from Jenkins. So really nice driving there from both of those drivers, but in particular from Trevor Malone.
It does mean gap to Alex Guyon up the road in 11th spot has opened up very slightly. Can Chris Reagan close on, cycle his way towards a top 10 finish? Some gaps are beginning to form, and I don't mean big gaps, but the kind of gaps which illustrate to me and indicate to me potentially drivers biding their time. Top 3 separated by 1 second. Closest car inside the top 6 is Mike Rasmas, who's about 3/10 off the back of Chris Fowler and trying to hunt down the number 20 machine. We'll jump on board with him. Work your way through the final corner. Be very careful not to slide your tires and end up on the walls on either side. Work your way up the hill and across the line to complete the second lap of this race. Unlike what we saw last time out at Long Beach, not going to be as much of a mental challenge as George Anzaldo's had a little bit of an off through that final corner. Just saying how difficult it can be. Series organizer George Anzaldo proving my point, just getting on the grass on the left-hand side, and has to lock that car down.
Yeah, it's so easy to lock your tires in this car, especially when you get on that edge of the track there. And you'll notice that the rear tires are just slightly wider than the front, so it's very easy to put that rear tire on the grass in any situation. So I think that's just what happened there. George just misread the braking zone just a little bit, and around he went, but no harm, no foul. Unfortunately, he probably will have lost the draft, so he's got some work ahead of him to get back to Danny Roberts in front of him. But we're back now looking at the action here, and Chris Reagan has gotten by Paul Jenkins now. So That's one more position up for Reagan, and he is definitely our biggest mover so far, and he is on the hunt for Trevor Malone now as well, Arjuna.
Believe it happened into turn 1 for Chris Reagan, so getting the run up the hill, using that draft, and maybe just getting a better exit off the corner than Paul Jenkins in the 35 Aerorex racing car. Jenkins got mixed up in an incident yesterday in the Lionheart IndyCar Series as they battled on the streets of Belle Isle. Unfortunate for him, his son Andrew was watching on, and I don't think was too thrilled that his dad's evening came to an end very early on. Richie Hearn having his traditional internet issues, but he is running behind Ricky Hart in 1.2 seconds, the gap between 9th and 10th position. Fastest lap of the race currently, if you're curious, is a 1:52.644. Last time around, Aaron Morgan did a 6:59, so he has closed the gap to his teammate out front. David Sirois following in close pursuit, 7/10 between 3rd and 4th positions. How patient are you going to be if you're Aaron Morgan, knowing that basically a victory is what you need to keep your title hopes alive?
I think you have to be patient for the first little bit of this race here, Arjuna. I do think that Aaron Morgan does feel the pressure and the need to get after his teammate Michael O'Brien and really take the lead of this race pretty soon. But at the same time, you have to let the race come to him, let Michael O'Brien make mistakes like he just did through turn 5 there. He was a little bit off the apex, and you can see Aaron Morgan just creeping up ever closer. And it's those types of little mistakes, those are the types of things that Aaron Morgan has to be looking for, because he can't afford to take a very risky move. What he needs to do is just have more of an opportunistic style move where he just sits there, waits for the race to come to him a little bit. And of course, there's also the fact that we will have at least one, if not 2 pit stops here in this race. So that will present another opportunity to make it up without too much risk for Aaron Morgan. So those are the opportunities that I'd be waiting for. And then I'd be like, if I'm still in 2nd or 3rd place come that final stint, that's where I start taking more and more risk.
Chris Fowler got passed by Mike Erasmus heading down the hill into turn 8. So Erasmus, knowing he's got to get on the back of the championship leader, you can take a look at the live point situation, top right-hand portion of your screen. Does factor in the drop, so it will change things around. Morgan, 10 points greater in numbers than Rasmus. That the gap between them was 15 coming into this weekend, so just illustrates that the drop weeks have cycled out in favor as O'Brien punches in the fastest lap of 1:52.333. The gap to Taylor between Morgan and Taylor has actually closed. It's only an 8-point swing in terms of the race today, but the drops have cycled it in even closer as things run. I never trust the commentator's math because I'm having to do this on the fly, but I think that's, 34 points?
Yes, that's 34 points from Taylor to Aaron Morgan. So it is progress for Aaron Morgan, but I don't think that he will be satisfied with that entirely. I think that he will want to get even closer. The one that I want to keep my eye on, though, is Mike Rasmus, because he's now got the championship leader right in front of him. So he's got to have in his sights the person that he knows he needs to finish in front of. He can't afford to finish behind Matt Taylor in this race. And as we see, Nick DeGroot had an incident at turn 5 here, Arjuna.
So easy to do. I've made more mistakes than I care to admit, but it was side by side with Ariel Alanis. Does 2 come into 1, or is it going to be a self-inflicted mistake? Deep under the brakes for the factory-backed car, and well, he's lucky he didn't beach it in the gravel, able to get back in the right direction as easy as pie. So Nick DeGroot. Now we'll have George Anzaldo for company very shortly, because Anzaldo's only about 3.5 seconds off the back of him. As back to the live pictures, waiting to see anything's going to change around between the top 3 cars. O'Brien will be in front of Sirois by 4 points. So plenty of things to play for. So much intrigue with double points on the line. And 34 points is not a large margin at a track like Auto Club. We should make that clear, Andrew, because that's going to be a pretty scary race if you're Matt Taylor.
Absolutely. That'll be a nerve-wracking race for all 3 of them, especially at a place like Auto Club where it has traditionally been more of a draft race where small mistakes, not even by yourself but by other people, can potentially take you out of the race. So if I'm Matt Taylor, I'm definitely not feeling comfortable with Aaron Morgan sitting 2 spots in front of me right now. I I think that both Taylor and Rasmus, they see Aaron Morgan up there sitting in second place behind his teammate to boot, and they're not comfortable with how this race is unfolding so far. So, as we see a mistake from Michael O'Brien through turn 5, and Aaron Morgan is now right on the back of his teammate with David Sirois all over the back of Aaron Morgan as well.
David Rodriguez, Isaac Snyder side by side. Snyder tried to lunge into turn 5. We saw Trevor Malone do a similar thing on Paul Jenkins, where back up the corner, regain the position. That's what we've seen from David Rodriguez. Indications that Isaac Snyder will join on up with RSR Esports in the next couple of races. I say next couple of races, only one more to go in 2021. So maybe the 2022 campaign will have 2 of the RSR Esport machines, as that's Trevor Malone going for a ride in through turn 8. Comes out just in front of Ariel Alanis, but was close for a moment to make some contact with Paul Jenkins, who was cycling on through.
And Chris Reagan, after this, had a moment in the carousel as well, Arjuna, but it looks like here Trevor Malone, he just got in way too deep, but you can see Reagan, I don't know how he kept that pointed straight there, Arjuna. I really don't. He had a huge moment there, just got way too wide, tried to diamond off the corner a little bit, and it just, the back end came around on him, and he threw some excellent steering and throttle control, kept it pointed straight, but he has lost a couple of positions to Paul Jenkins at the very least there.
There's been some great saves this past week as Mike Rasmus puts in a 52.244. Faster yet as he closes on Matt Taylor for 4th position. I think back to Alexander Van der Sant back on Monday, where battling for the lead of the race, some side-by-side contact, and he almost ended up he was almost perpendicular to the track. It was a pretty scary moment as Reagan is going to cycle back on past Paul Jenkins, but don't think this one is done, because it will open the door for Trevor Malone to get the power down coming through turn 3. Draft on an offer for both Jenkins and Malone. Which way is Reagan going to jink? Left or right, inside or outside? It's going to cover off Paul Jenkins. Trevor Malone thinks wiser of a lunge down the inside, because these cars, all the fighting, all the mistakes, 5.5 seconds off the back of Alex Guyon, up in 11th position. But it was, you remember that save on Monday, don't you, Andrew? It was remarkable what we saw from Van der Sant. Reagan going for the save of the week then.
Yeah, I've done similar things to what Van der Sant did, and it is a heart-in-your-throat moment. Similarly with Reagan, your heart is beating 1,000 beats per minute, and you really have to do a great job calming it down afterwards to get back into a race. And but yeah, it was a spectacular moment from Monday. If you haven't watched it, you should go back and watch it on the Race Spot replay back on the YouTube channel after this race, of course. But that was a thrilling race from the Speedway Series on Monday in a number of different respects. Lots of drama.
Priorities.
But yes, priorities. We have a fabulous race going on here, Arjuna. You'll notice that we've gone through 7 now on the 8 laps of this race. We're starting the 8th lap of this race. And the top 8 are within 5 seconds of the leader. So that draft that we were talking about is really coming into play here. And it's allowing a lot of these drivers to stay in this lead pack. And I think that as the fuel wears off and as these tires come in, particularly as we go through maybe a couple of cycles on these same tires and the bias ply tires really come into their own, we're going to start seeing a whole bunch more moves here.
There is some separation, though, between Rasmus and Fowler. It's up to 1.7 coming into the braking zone. Fowler did close, so clearly feeling a bit comfortable, a bit more comfortable than the cars in front on the entry into turn 5. Then there's Richie Hearn, who's not too far off the back of Isaac Snyder, 2.5 back from 8th spot. You're right, then there's plenty of stuff still to come. We've got that battle 13th on back, which continues to escalate. Jenkins, Malone, Alanis. Chris Reagan trying to stretch his legs, pull away from those cars after his mistake. And the hard-charging Reagan trying to charge his way now through the 4.5 seconds that he finds himself behind Alex Guyon, the second of the Lavoie Motorsports machines. Be interesting to know if we're going to see Jean-Francois Matt back in action for the final race of the campaign for AeroX Racing. Really want to lock down the team standing, second place in the team standings. Chris Fowler coming under fire from David Rodriguez, Isaac Snyder. I would think, given that Fowler's pace has somewhat dropped off in comparison to the leaders, might be a good idea to cycle Rodriguez to the front of this pack and see if he can close the gap. Fowler getting very loose on the exit of the final corner.
Yeah, you can see just how hard that Fowler is pressing here. He really doesn't want to let Rodriguez by, but I think that Rodriguez has got a really good run here coming down the front stretch. This is the longest straight on the track, and we see that Rodriguez pulled out into turn 1, but Fowler hanging tough on the outside, doesn't want to let it go, and he hangs tough, keeps Rodriguez behind him down into turn 3 here, and that puts Isaac Snyder right on the back of David Rodriguez as well.
More time being lost, though. Now 2.3 the gap between Rasmussen and Fowler, so great fight. Doesn't necessarily help these guys in the race itself, but Rodriguez has the toe to the inside. Slightly defensive, slightly aggressive, almost backed out of that one, and there's contact. Around goes Fowler. Snyder wants to take full advantage under the Corvette bridge. Isaac Snyder 2 for 1. Great opportunistic pass.
Yeah, really unfortunate there for Chris Fowler. I think he got in probably a little bit too early on the brakes, it almost looked like, because he turned in once and then he turned in sort of a second time a little bit harder, and Rodriguez was just kind of there, and the tires of the two cars came together. So unfortunate for Chris Fowler. Fortunately, he didn't lose too much time, and he's only really gone down behind Richie Hearn and Ricky Harden here. And he does seem to have a little bit more pace than they do, so he should be able to get back in front of this duo fairly quickly here. So I think probably a case of no harm, no foul there at the end of the day in terms of fault for that incident. But yeah, just an unfortunate incident for Fowler, and that's really been the story of his season a little bit, Arjuna, is he's been having strong performances, but he's been making maybe putting himself in situations that have been leading to some bad luck, I think is the best way to put it.
Even faster from O'Brien, 51.915. Fowler has had some great speed, but he's fortunate in some regards that his bad luck has been consistent throughout the course of the season, because unlike Matt Taylor, whose bad luck has really started to develop of late when he's fighting not for 1 but 2 Lionheart titles, it's a much more tricky position for Matt Taylor. Here comes Morgan, though, closer than we've seen him over the course of the race. Backs out of that one, surely just some fuel saving going on, knowing that maybe he can cycle out in front of his teammate through the cycle like he did last time at Long Beach. A little bit ginger. Does bring David Sirois just a little bit closer as they work themselves through the kink, hurrying down the hurry downs. Always like to make that pun, although I'm sure Paul Smith doesn't appreciate it. Let's take a look at what happened then to Chris Fowler heading into the braking zone. It was interesting. Rodriguez, for a moment it looked like he hadn't gone deep enough, and then another moment it looked like Fowler had responded and released off the brakes, and ultimately just utter carnage as Isaac Snyder saw his perfect opportunity to take 2 in 1, and a great move there from Isaac Snyder to take advantage.
We have confirmed from Market Race Control that there will be no further penalties for that incident there, Arjuna. So just one of those things that can happen in racing sometimes is two drivers really trying to go hard for a position, and they just end up coming together through no real intention on either part. And I'd say definitely a good call on that one. But looking now towards the front of this race, you mentioned Aaron Morgan, and one of the things that is very important to consider with these bi-supply tires is, again, that you want to maximize the amount of time that you spend on low fuel with this car, because the low fuel basically means that there's less weight in the car and you get more time just because that weight has come out of the car. So because the tires don't really go off and because the fuel burns off, if you can go one lap further, that's a huge advantage. So by Aaron Morgan staying right behind his teammate and forcing his teammate to lead, it potentially does allow him to make that leapfrog that you mentioned. But the reason for that is because of how this car works with the tires and with the fuel load that it does.
And we're already on lap 11, so we're not far away from potentially seeing drivers down. Remember, fuel window likely opens around lap 13. If anyone is able to stretch it to 16, we'd suspect they are trying the one stop, because the thing to consider and remember is it's a full pace lap here at Road America, and that is a rather lengthy pace lap as well. We're talking about 4 miles in terms of just pacing yourself. Yes, you're not going, pedal to the metal and burning a maximum amount of fuel. It's very much a longer pace lap than any race we've seen so far in 2021, so you need to think about your fuel strategy with that in mind. Mike Rasmus.
Absolutely.
Sorry, Mike Rasmus did go faster, by the way, so you are getting that indication. Fuel burns off, tires come in, lap times keep coming down.
Absolutely. And then the other thing to consider with that long pace lap is, of course, that these cars don't have any electronic aids, and more importantly, they don't have any fuel maps. So any fuel management that you can do, whether it's in the race or even on the pace lap, it's all done with the driver's right foot. So there are ways that you can make sure that you use the least amount of fuel possible on a pace lap, such as using the clutching and coasting and making sure that you're not revving the engine up. But so it'll be interesting to see whether some of these drivers employed any of those tactics even on the pace lap, trying to make it that extra lap and trying to stretch it into this one-stop race that could potentially happen.
We know for a fact it won't be O'Brien, though. He's the one that's punching the hole in the air. He's the one that's towing these 5 cars through. It is now a 5-car train separated by just about 2 seconds. 4.5, almost 5, back to Isaac Snyder, who's still battling with David Rodriguez. 2 cars squabbling for 6th. Richie Hearn is now only about 2 off the back of Rodriguez. So podium last time out for the former IndyCar driver in full medal competition. He did have a great drive here 12 months ago, and we mentioned maybe trying to carry that momentum forward, but didn't have the best run in qualifying. Has left him just a little bit too far behind to really try and work his way back up to the front. As George Anzaldo, Nick de Groot, position swapped around there. The 2 drivers have early issues. Now they'll be fighting tooth and nail to not be the last car on the track, but 18 cars took to the green flag. 18 cars still out there on track. Very different to what we saw last time at Long Beach.
Yeah, complete opposite, I would even say, Arjuna. It's been a really clean race so far. A couple of mistakes from a few drivers, but as you mentioned, it's been a really strong race so far. Going back to Richie Hearn for a minute, I will say that when you have a big moment like he had through turn 1 on lap 1, it can throw you off. Even if you're a seasoned driver like Richie Hearn is, it can throw you off for a little bit. So I think what we're seeing here is that Richie has started to pick up the pace again because he's just gotten a little bit more comfortable with what the car is doing, especially as the tires have burned off. I think the car's coming to him just a little bit. So I've been watching his lap times, and they've been really strong these last few laps, although that the last one, he was basically the same pace as the 2 cars in front of him. So he's been doing a really good job of just settling back into this race and letting it come to him. So really strong drive from Rich.
But when you're by yourself, it can also be difficult to find the time that maybe your competitors have against you. That's what some of the, I call it data downloading. You don't necessarily do it as much on a road course as you would on an oval, especially at the super speedway, type of races where you try stuff out, you see how things are going to work, and then coming to the final laps, to the white flag, to the checkered flag, you have an idea of what's going to work out best. For Aaron Morgan, he's been able to ride around Michael O'Brien, see where he's strong, see where he's weak. Seems like turn 5 is potentially the place where O'Brien seems to be the least comfortable, but having said that, it's not like he's going slow by any means. He's been going faster and faster lap after lap. But just that opportunity for the cars behind to see and learn over the course of the race, because in a fixed setup competition, Andrew, that's important because it's about you adapting to the car that you're given. It's not about you dialing in the car to work with your driving style. It's very much the other way around.
I like the term you use there in data download. As we see Michael O'Brien in the pits this time by. This is lap 13, so this is on the short side of the window here. So I do believe Mike Rasmus is also in the pit lane. This is a very, very long pit lane here. Very slow pit road speed limit. So you're going to see a delta in excess of, I believe it's 35 to 37 seconds here with these cars. So frankly a little bit torturous when you come down the pit lane that slowly. But this is the money lap here for Aaron Morgan and David Sirois and Matt Taylor. This is the lap that will show us whether or not they will be able to pass Michael O'Brien and keep Mike Rasmus behind them, because if they can put together a solid lap here with no mistakes, they stand a really good chance of leapfrogging it out, because Michael O'Brien will be on the higher fuel load, and he just won't have the pace on his outlap that Aaron Morgan is having on what is potentially his in-lap here.
And it was a 51.619, fastest lap of the race for Morgan last time around. So got the memo, already has turned the wig up to maximum. Confirmation as well that effectively O'Brien, Rasmus, Reagan, Danny Roberts and George Anzaldo all committed to a two-stop strategy. Not much they can do, as Ariel Alanis has spun that car around, at least pointed back in the right direction. Might have been a nice little 360 there for the independent driver coming down through, I think, turn 6 under the Corvette bridge. Question remains, Morgan, Sirois, Taylor, do they come in this lap as Matt Taylor been saving fuel, biding his time behind the rest of the cars in that lead breakaway? Morgan looks like he's coming in, so does Sirois and Taylor as well. So confirmation, all of our race competitors, race winning competitors, I should say, electing for the two-stop strategy. Don't think anyone is risking it for the biscuit onto pit lane. And it's not a car that's got a pit limiter, Andrew. So you're having to make sure you don't speed all by yourself.
It doesn't have a pit limiter, and this is one of the trickiest pit-ins on the circuit here, Arjun. You're basically blind and uphill, and the pit road speed limit is maybe 20 meters past the crest of that hill. So you really have to do a very good job of getting yourself down to a very low speed, basically, and you're basically doing it blind, as we see Aaron Morgan with a fabulous pit stop, and he is back out in front of Michael O'Brien. David Sirois, Michael O'Brien, side by side through turn 1.
Oh, and O'Brien's gone off from pole position to the gravel trap. It was side by side with David Sirois, and through the chaos, through the carnage, Mike Rasmus has cycled himself in front of Matt Taylor. This is crucial. Championship leader bundled down to 4th, as one of his championship rivals is now side by side with the Laval Motorsports number 99 car. They'll be downhill, braking, long way around for Mike Rasmus, but he gets the job done a little bit sideways. Rasmus up to 2nd. Pit strategy, well, it's not about pit strategy right now, it's about the action out on track, and Aaron Morgan is 4 seconds clear of 2nd on back.
That was an extremely important pit exchange from David Sirois there, from Mike Rasmus. This is exactly what he needed to do. He got lucky with what happened there with Michael O'Brien and David Sirois through turn 1. It really slowed down David Sirois. Mike Rasmus takes advantage of that, and now he is off to the races in 2nd place. Now 3 seconds back of Aaron Morgan, but if he can find a way to close down on Aaron Morgan, he went from P5 to P2, and this was basically the moment of the race for Mike Rasmus so far, Arjuna.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead then and try and take a look at what happened on the pit exit there. Morgan, with a flyer of an in-lap, didn't even make it close. So, hard to tell. We're going to have to take one more look at it from maybe Rasmus's viewpoint behind, because he would have had a great view of what was going on there. It did look as though Sirois tried to lunge late under the brakes, but of course he's at less speed and so has the ability to go a little bit deeper in the braking zone, and potentially O'Brien just tries to cover off a car that's already still down on his inside there. Yeah,
really difficult to call that one, Arjuna. I understand that Sirois probably wasn't fully there in the braking zone, and O'Brien probably thought he could get away with it, but I think Sirois was just there enough. And of course, at that stage of the race, Sirois really couldn't afford to just let O'Brien take that from him. So I understand Sirois trying to keep himself on the inside there. I do think there was also a fair bit of netcode that went on there between the two cars. There was a fair bit of room between them when the contact was actually made. So I do think it probably needs to be reviewed, but in my opinion, that was just another one of those racing deals, similar to what we saw earlier with Rodriguez and Fowler, where it was just two cars racing really, really hard and just an unfortunate incident, especially for our pole sitter, Michael O'Brien there.
My new favorite term for netcode is there's just a little bit of air in between the two cars. Confirmation as well, Morgan did go quite short on the pit stop, 6.6 seconds stationary. It means he'll come in a little bit earlier, but he's got less fuel in his car right now, can try and really build an advantage, but Mike Rasmussen is having none of that. Gap now down to 3.3 seconds. Lap time for Morgan was a 52.441. For Mike Rasmussen, 52.116, so 0.3 quicker. Already pulled a 1.8 second buffer to Matt Taylor, to David Sirois, fighting now for the final step on the podium. Let's see how this cycles out, and let's take a look at how things are shaking up with the live point situation, because it's coming down as a result of this. Now 28 points the difference between Taylor and Morgan, with one double points race left to go. Mike Rasmussen still hypothetically in with a shout, but depending on the number of cars that we have racing at Auto Club, it might still be academic, and ultimately for Rasmussen, he's going to need utter disaster for Morgan and Taylor to try and come out on top in this championship.
I think that, so it depends on obviously how Mike Rasmussen does at Auto Club, but I think that he's still got a very strong shot at this, Arjuna. With 120 points for the winner, and it quickly goes down after that. So I think that with, if I'm doing my maths right, it should be somewhere around having Matt Taylor finish worse than I think it's around P12 or so. So definitely still within the realm of possibility. So I wouldn't be too concerned if I'm Mike Rasmussen about this. I think that so far, at least, this race has gone just about as well as he could have hoped, especially starting back where he did in P6, working himself all the way up to second right now. This is about as good as he can hope for. Meanwhile, you mentioned Aaron Morgan going short on that pit stop, so that's a really, really interesting strategy call that I want to talk about, because what it's going to mean is he's going to have less fuel on these two stints, but it's also going to mean that his third stint is going to be a longer stint. So he's going to fill up his tank a little bit more when he comes down pit road the next time by, and he's going to be a little bit heavier. So it's very important that he sort of makes hay while the sun shines here and gets as far out in front of the cars in front of, or the cars behind him, like Rasmus, Sirois, and Taylor, as he can right now, because they're going to likely be faster on that final run to the checkered flag.
Although, having said that, last time around, lap times did equalize, so Morgan does have to start building up the buffer once more, because it is down to about 3 seconds. About 10th quicker was Rasmus last time. Of course, his tires would have been back up to the optimal temperature a little bit quicker, but you would have expected on the second flying lap that Morgan would be right back there and have the grip right where he wanted it. Back and forth, lap times yet to be traded, I'm sure. Wait and see how it cycles out. Sirois was half a second slower than Morgan, 0.6 slower than Rasmussen, so Matt Taylor is now bunched up behind Sirois, really now just fighting for third place out on track, try and minimize the damage and the impact that the cars in front will be able to chip into the championship gap. One car has retired. Danny Roberts has been down on pit lane for about 2 minutes and 30 seconds and counting. Still in the car. Not day done necessarily for the 43. Appears as though it might have been a mistake coming in through the kink or potentially in through Canada corner. Go ahead and see what happened here. It is Canada corner, but what happens? So it's just a solo car incident, but it reminds me of something that we saw in the IndyCar race here, Andrew, where we had not one, not two, but 3 cars all go off at the same time at this very corner.
Yeah, no sympathy slides for anyone here, Arjuna, but yeah, Canada Corner is one of those braking zones where, again, it's slightly downhill and it's also slightly off camber, so it's very, very easy to just get in that little bit too deep. And I think that's just what happened with Danny Roberts there. And then as soon as you lock the brakes up, you're basically a passenger, especially in this car, in that particular area of the track. And so there was nothing Roberts could do. As soon as he locked the tire, he was going through the gravel, and it's a very, very short runoff there. So unfortunately into the barrier for him, and that is I do believe he is back out on track, but now 2 laps down, so that is put paid to any hopes he had in this race, really. And the car is probably not going to be handling very well for the rest of his time out there with us.
Yeah, it was almost 3 minutes in the box, 2 minutes 49 seconds, so at least he was able to get things repaired. George Anzaldo is down onto pit road this time around. I'm not sure if he had his own issue. Not seeing anything pop up on my timing screen that would indicate that Anzaldo had a big off or anything like that, but very early stop. Now he would be able to get to the end from here, but he did have a long pit stop last time around, one of the longer times, 9.1 in the box. So as he comes to a stop in the lane once again, it's only 6.2 stationary, so maybe it is just a short fill-up. Don't necessarily then understand the strategy.
Yeah, it's a bit puzzling on the strategy, but I think at the same time, it could just be that he wasn't feeling comfortable with where he was, wanted to get out sort of on his own, especially if he was in a battle with Nick de Groot out on track, as we've seen a number of times throughout the course of this race. So he might just be trying to do something a little bit different. I'm not sure that I like the strategy, but at the same time, when you're that far back, you might as well try something a little bit different and see what happens.
I wonder as well, potentially, if he was about to be lap traffic.
Yep, that very well could be, although I do think that he's cycled out fairly close to the front of the pack, actually. Yeah, so he is right behind the 68 of Mike Rasmus, in between Rasmus and David Sirois. So
okay.
He is actually right in amongst the leaders right now. And we do see a little bit of damage to his front wing as well. So it could be that he had just a little bit of an off and just wanted to see if he could get anything repaired. And when it didn't happen, he's good to the end as well. So that's another possibility.
I think that happened on his incident through the final quarter, but I'm not 100% sure.
Well, I don't think he touched anything there, so if it did, it would have just been...
Oh, no, you're right. He went to the other side. I'm remembering what happened to Josh Chin through the final corner a couple of weeks ago in the Lionheart IndyCar Series when they came here, and he was the one that bonked himself into the inside tire wall right on the right side of the track on the entry to pit lane, in effect.
Yeah, that was definitely probably not one moment that Josh would like to remember, but right now George Anzaldo probably coming back down pit road again just to get out of the way of David Sirois and the leaders here, but it definitely doesn't look like he's having the best of days out there, unfortunately. Meanwhile, we've got a nice battle that's been going on that you've been seeing on screen between Chris Fowler and Isaac Snyder here for a while, and Isaac has been really, really strong here today. He's not necessarily shown the most speed on road courses so far this year, but today here at Road America, he's really been showing some strong pace and keeping up with Chris Fowler, who's shown a number of times to have quick pace, and he's got Richie Hearn and Michael O'Brien behind him. So Snyder doing a really, really good job here today. Looking
for his best finish of the season up front. Gap coming down bit by bit. Mike Rasmus did a 51.666 last time around. 2 and a bit tenths quicker than Morgan. That gap now under 3 seconds. Rasmus is coming on strong. As always, qualifying pace, not the best indication of what your long run pace is going to be over the course of the race. Gap back to Sirois now 4 seconds and building. So Matt Taylor really stuck. Needs to get past the 99 car to try and get a couple of extra points to his name heading in to our season finale. This time around, it will be 10 laps to go, so we are within the fuel window if anyone wants to come on down for the final time in today's race. But not expecting any of these cars out front to do so, knowing that the car gets quicker as you burn the fuel off, as the tires continue to get themselves bedded into the race here. What's the time going to be for Morgan this time? And across the line he comes. It's a 51.585. So it is a new fastest lap, but Mike Razmas, having none of it, immediately steals it away, a 51.441. Here comes Razmas, and with that shorter stop that he's going to have in the second stint of the race, this is going to be interesting if the overcut works for Aaron Morgan once more.
It will be interesting, but I will say, Arjuna, that just looking at the pit stop times and the time in the pit lane, Mike Rasmus was only 0.2 of a second longer than Aaron Morgan, so it's very, very possible that he also has short-filled this particular stint in addition to Aaron Morgan, and that could be one of the reasons why both of them have been able to put so much distance on that 99 car of David Sirois. So I'm saying, based on what I'm seeing from both Morgan and Rasmus, we should probably be seeing them on pit road here, I'm guessing, in the next 3 laps.
Well, actually, it's a good point that I'd missed out. Morgan was the shortest in the box, 6.6. Razmas a full second longer, 7.6, which was a full second shorter than David Sirois and Matt Taylor, who were about 8.5 seconds in the box. The crucial thing was Morgan, with the shortest stop, still was in the lane, which is measured from when you get down to those green cones that mark the entry to pit lane to the yellow cones on the exit. It might be the other way around, yellow cones on the entry, green on the exit. He was 37.9. Razmas 1 second longer in the box, 0.2 longer in the lane. You talked about the difficulty of pit entry here. I wonder if Mike Razmas is just more comfortable braking onto pit road here, as Aaron Morgan is coming in.
Yeah, so this is almost exactly halfway through the stint here for Aaron Morgan. So that would be 8 laps completed for Aaron Morgan, and he'll have 8 laps to go. So he's basically split this last stint in half. Meanwhile, Mike Rasmus going 1 more lap, and I do think that this will probably be the last lap for Mike Rasmus as well. David Sirois, Matt Taylor, they can probably go another 4 or 5 laps if I'm counting this correctly. So these will be the important laps. This will be the important lap here for Mike Rasmus, because he's been just outside the draft range, really, of Aaron Morgan. So if he can have a really strong lap here where Aaron Morgan's coming out of the pits, if he can have a really strong lap here and a really strong pit stop, then this is where he can potentially get himself right up onto the back gearbox of Aaron Morgan and potentially set himself up to maybe even pass Aaron by the end of this race. So very important lap here for Mike Rasmus.
Will it be side by side on pit road exit once more? Rasmus flying through the carousel. Aaron Morgan 6.9 seconds stationary in the box this time around. 38.1 total pit lane time, but it doesn't include, of course, the time it takes for you to slow down to get onto the anchors, bring your speed down to the pit road limit. Doesn't include the time you'll lose when you get back up to speed as well. Rasmus through Canada corner. We're about to see if he'll come in this time around. If he's able to go 1 lap further. He did put in the fastest lap of 51.435 last time. And he stays out there once more. Surely going to be another fast lap for the 68 machine. Exactly what he would have wanted. The gap was 2.8 seconds when Morgan peeled his way onto pit road. Rasmus, another 10th faster, a 51.327.
Oh, this is so important for Mike Rasmus. He's doing exactly what he needs to do. These are the laps that count. He somehow made it in his fuel last 1 more lap compared to 2 more laps compared to Aaron Morgan. So with Aaron Morgan, he's also come out into some traffic. It peels away from him right now. I believe that was, who was that? That was Chris
Alex,
Reagan?
No, it was Alex Guyon in the 08. As what's happened?
Oh my!
Isaac
Snyder,
who was on for his best finish of the season, has crumpled that Lotus 79. Best finish of the season was 13th for the number 13. Well, that's going to put paid to the chances of a top 10, I would have to assume, because that car going to be much worse for the wear. Looks all pretty coming into turn 1. What happens here?
carries too much speed, gets on that outside portion of the track. There's a curb, and then there's a little bit of extra pavement there, but there's a lot of dust, and it's really, really bumpy out there, and it looks like he just hits one of the bumps. It spins him around into the inside wall there, and that has severely damaged that number 13 car of Isaac Snyder.
We've seen top-level drivers do that. We in the ISOWC, Phil Kraus made that mistake in the closing stages. Took not just him out of the race, but a car that was following very close behind as well. So it's easy to do. Just wash yourself out wide. Try and maximize the run down into turn 3. Here, though, comes the race leader, who has been putting in some very quick laps. This is crucial. Good entry onto the lane. Has to execute on pit road.
So important. As we watch Mike Rasmus come slowly down pit road, and as I mentioned before, Arjuna, this is just torture for a driver. You do have a little bit to do here in the Lotus 79 because you can't just push a button and get a speed limiter. You are manually manipulating the throttle, but it is torturously slow. Now Mike Rasmus in the box. Let's see just how fast he can get this pit stop done.
Bottom right portion of the screen, you can see the 48 car on the track map already coming across the line, but Rasmus cycles to the race lead, but not for long. Morgan gets it done around the outside as Rasmus rolls himself off a pit lane. It's close, 0.7 of a second. Rasmus has the draft.
Rasmus is right there. Aaron Morgan on that last lap was a full second slower than what Mike Rasmus's last flying lap was. So we saw that he was about 2 to 2.5 seconds back before the pit stop. Now we are under 0.7 of a second between Mike Rasmus and Aaron Morgan. So Mike Rasmus is now right there, and he's been getting faster and faster all race. So this is not what Aaron Morgan wanted to see. Mike Rasmus is on the hunt, and I think he's got a real good shot at Aaron Morgan here.
Now the question becomes, if these two fight, how much longer can David Sirois, can Matt Taylor go? They may be able to stretch it to potentially even lap 30 as they go faster and faster. Last time it was a 51.665 for David Sirois. Now remember, he was about 4.5, 5 seconds behind Mike Rasmus last we checked in, so that gap surely had gone on up just a little bit. So 5 laps might give the edge to Sirois, to Taylor, to at least close on the gap. Might see plenty of jockeying at the front of the field. It will be 6 laps to go this time around. David Rodriguez onto pit road. Sirois and Taylor still out there and cycling.
Yeah, this is exactly what Sirois and Taylor need. They spent a lot of time going just a little bit slower than Aaron Morgan and Mike Rasmus and let them get the gap up. But this is where they can make the money back. In these next few laps here, they are going to be much faster than Aaron Morgan and Mike Rasmus. So we'll have to see just how fast they can be, but it should be really, really close come the end of this race.
6 laps to go. Don't go anywhere. Don't peel your eyes off the action. We'll go side by side. Closing stages of the Sim Experience Grand Prix of Road America coming up next on RaceSpot TV. Welcome back to RaceSpot TV and coverage of the penultimate race in the 2021 Lionheart Retro Series. We're in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, America's National Park of Speed for the Sim Experience Grand Prix of Road America, presented by Carnox. Final pit stops yet to be underway for David Sirois, for Matt Taylor, and meanwhile, the squabbling is on between Aaron Morgan and Mike Razmas, two drivers that need championship points to head themselves into a double-point, adrenaline-filled showdown at the Auto Club Speedway in 1 month's time. My name is Arjuna Kankipati. Alongside for the action, as always, is Andrew Kinsella as we get geared up for an exhilarating 4 laps to close things off. Razmas took a look into turn 1 last time, but just a little bit too far behind. Don't think the pass, though, the attempted pass, is going to be there and going to be left and done there, Andrew. I think we've still got plenty more excitement to come.
We've got plenty of excitement, and look just in front of them. They have a slightly slower car. He's not a lap car, but he is a slower car on a different fuel strategy right now in Ricky Harden. So it's going to be very interesting. It's going to get spicy here in the next few laps. And what these two have really got to be careful of is they can't let their squabbling and their fight for points affect how fast they're going around this track. So David Sirois, the last time around, was half a second quicker than Aaron Morgan and Matt Taylor. This time around, we're looking at 0.3 of a second. So lap by lap, David Sirois is making the gap smaller and smaller, but he did have a large gap to get over. So it'll be really, really interesting to see if these two will start fighting it out more with just 4 laps to go, or whether David Sirois can bridge the gap that he has to do with this alternate fuel strategy compared to Morgan and Rasmus.
I think they have it covered off, because we need to see a bit more speed from the 99 car to really have closed what was a 4, 5, almost 6 second advantage heading into the cycle for Morgan and Razmas. So I do believe that these cars have it covered. Their gap between Sirois and Morgan is 27 seconds. Estimated pit lane time about 38 seconds. So unless there's a miracle, I think Morgan and Razmas, the two contenders for victory. Matt Taylor has dropped about 2.5 back from David Sirois, so unfortunately for him, might be dropping a couple more points heading into the championship showdown that he would have wanted. It will be 3 to go this time around. Does David Sirois peel it off onto pit entry? Yes, he does. Up the hill, late as you can on the anchors, yellow cones. That's the pit lane marker. Matt Taylor follows him in, so let's see how close it will be. Net race leader coming in through Canada corner. Ricky Harden maybe slowing them down just a little bit, because he was doing a 52.9 last time around, so almost 1.5 seconds slower than what we're seeing from David Sirois from Matt Taylor. Ricky Harden due for a pit stop imminently, will peel himself down. Sirois and Taylor still cycling down the lane at the pedestrian 70 kilometers an hour as they finally get into their box for the final time. Fuel going into their cars. Razmas and Morgan well and truly clear. Here comes the lunge from Razmas. Thought better of it. Oh, excitement building up here with 3 laps to go.
Things are really heating up, and Mike Razmas now knows that he doesn't have to worry about David Sirois catching him back up. It's now down to him and Aaron Morgan, and he has his sights set on the back of that 48 car. He just did he still holds the fastest lap of the race, don't forget, Arjuna. So we know that these are the 2 fastest drivers on the track. It's only a question of, can Rasmus find a way by Aaron Morgan? And more importantly, can he do it in a way that doesn't potentially put both of them at risk? Because both of them need the points for this win, and both of them want the points for the win, but neither of them can afford to not have the points for second place.
At least it's not the same situation we were in 7 days ago when Aaron Morgan was fighting with Michael O'Brien, 2 teammates back and forth. Rule number 1 in racing, never hit your teammate. Probably up there as well is make sure you don't hit your championship rivals and cost both of you significant points paying positions. Don't let Matt Taylor cycle back up to the front of this field. There will be 8 miles to go this time around. Razmas just a little bit too far behind to try a lunge down into Canada corner, one of the heavier braking zones we have on this track, down through the gears. Work your way up towards Bill Mitchell Bend, the penultimate corner on the track. Haven't seen as many mistakes as one might have expected through what is a very high commitment final couple of corners. Looking good. One more chance, Andrew, to predict who's going to win here. Which way are you going?
I really like how Mike Rasmus has been approaching these corners. One of the things that I've noticed is that Rasmus is going really, really deep on the brakes, deeper than Aaron Morgan has been able to go. So I think that Rasmus can get the job done here as he peeks out into turn one, but doesn't ultimately try to make the move. But I'm going to go with Mike Rasmus here. I think the draft and the way that he's braking, I think that he can make this happen.
He needs to stop half committing to these moves, though. He needs to set them up, and instead of, poking his nose, maybe just hang back through turn one, get as close as he can on the run down into turn three, and really apply the pressure all the way down into turn five, still a little bit too far behind. If a move's coming, would not be shocked if it's into turn one on the last lap of the race, because coming out of the final corner, that's where Rasmus seems to be quickest.
And I do wonder if Mike Rasmus has just been biding his time just a little bit, because one of the advantages of making a move on the final lap, as we see a lunge here.
What happened there? It looked like Morgan checked his momentum up. Rasmus almost loops it around side by side on the exit of turn number 7. But for now, Morgan holds on. He's got 4 miles at the end of this lap to hold on. It's going to come down to the wire. I think Rasmus is hungry for this victory.
Yeah, I think Aaron Morgan might have missed a shift there. Of course, these are manual gearboxes, so depending on what his setup is, it could have been that he just made a mistake. But here comes Mike Rasmus now trying the outside. Oh!
Was there contact, or was that as close as you could get?
I think that was probably just about as close as you could get without there being contact, because Mike Rasmus, if there was, he would have been into the outside wall and probably down the escape road, but they get away with it there. And now Mike Rasmus, he's got a big opportunity here, but Aaron Morgan gets through the final corner. Can Mike Rasmus draft past Aaron Morgan on this straightaway? Over to you, Arjuna.
White flag in the air. 4 miles left to go in the penultimate race of the 2021 season. Rasmus, long way around at turn number 1. He's laid on the brakes. Morgan's not going to give it up easy. Rasmus almost ducks himself into the gravel. Morgan holds on for now. Back into the drop. Back to the inside. Rasmus, has he just compromised the run all the way down out of turn 3 into turn 5? This is the primary passing opportunity. This is where dreams are made. Title chances can be dashed. Who's it going to be? Who's going to be last of the late breakers? Morgan covers him off this time around. That's a smart thing to do. Rasmus will try the over-under. Morgan is having none of it. One more opportunity to go down into Canada corner.
Yeah, really smart driving there from Aaron Morgan. He covered off exactly where he needed to. And Mike Rasmus, he's pushing just a little too hard here. He's made a couple of mistakes. And I don't know that he's going to be close enough to Aaron Morgan. He made a big mistake coming out of turn 6. And I think that that's probably put him too far back from Aaron Morgan. So this looks like, barring a mistake from Aaron Morgan, it's going to be his race to win here.
And confirmation of how things will shake up with one double point race to go. The high-speed thriller that is Auto Club Speedway, the third of our Triple Crown races. 28 points between Matt Taylor, between Aaron Morgan, Mike Rasmus, 49 points adrift. It is all to play for in 1 month's time when we close out the 2021 season in our final Triple Crown race of the year. But here in Road America, the final road race of the campaign, the Lotus 79s are put on a show no matter where we break them out. But in America's National Park of Speed, Aaron Morgan makes it 2 wins on the trot in the Lionheart Retro Series. He'll take the title to the very last race. Morgan wins the Sim Experience Grand Prix of Road America, presented by Carnox. Great try from Mike Rasmus, but frustrating, I'm sure, to come that close and be that quick, but be unable to affect the pass in the closing stages of the race. David Sirrah will finish on the podium. Matt Taylor to complete the top 4. Michael O'Brien, the pole sitter, punted around by David Sirrah in contact that will be reviewed post-race. Rounds out the top 5 with battling to the line between David Rodriguez and Richie Hearn. Rodriguez had an issue on the penultimate lap of this race. Still finishes up in 6th position. What a track Road America is, Andrew, and it puts on a show no matter what car you break out here. We talked about how it's deceptively tricky to make things happen here. It's also pretty tricky, as we saw today, to get the pass done when you have someone like Aaron Morgan on top of his form, not willing to give things up.
That was such great racing that we saw on the last couple of laps there from those two. There was so much respect. They gave each other just enough room. Aaron Morgan defended without getting overly defensive where Mike Rasmus was aggressive. He went in, he was so close, but even when there was an opportunity to maybe close the door, he didn't do anything that compromised either of them. Really fantastic racing, and it ultimately came down to just a couple of small mistakes from Mike Rasmus that didn't allow him to come back and have one more shot at Aaron Morgan there. But just a fantastic race all around, and Road America has paid off once again here in the Lionheart Series.
We'll wait for the final car to cross the line before we get the Carnox race results up for you. It's Nick de Groot. The car that we're waiting for right now is he'll climb up the hill under the NTT bridge, and we will get those Carnox race results for you here in Road America. It is another victory in 2021 for Aaron Morgan, his third of the season, all coming on the road courses. He's conquered Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. He conquered the streets of Long Beach. Today, he conquers Road America. Mike Rasmus, 1.5 seconds back, finishes in second. David Sirois rounds out the podium positions with Matt Taylor, the championship leader, back in fourth. Michael O'Brien will be heartbroken from pole position to the gravel trap to fifth on track, but it's an Avatar Order Racing 1, 2, and 3, an illustration of why they are already your team's champions here in the Lionheart Retro Series. David Rodriguez does hold on to sixth position, but it's not too close between him and Richie Hearn. Chris Fowler, Ricky Harden, Christopher Reagan to complete the top 10. Alex Guyon, Paul Jenkins, 11th and 12th positions. Ariel Alanis down in 13th with Trevor Malone in 14th. Isaac Snyder was on for a career finish, up in the top 5 potentially for him. But an incident through turn 1 drops him to 15th with Nick de Groot, the last car on the lead lap. George Anzaldo, the only car one lap down. Danny Roberts, the only car that retired from today's race. And with that said, it's time to make our way into the HyperX post-race show, because the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com, and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15, for 15% off all orders. We are waiting for HyperX Victory Lane to be populated, and there's the sigh of relief from Aaron Morgan. Aaron, congratulations, a second victory in 7 days for you here in the Lotus 79. Brings the championship all the way down to the wire. How thrilled are you with this third victory of 2021?
I'm so happy. I went into this string of road courses saying I needed to win all 3, and I think I could have in Silverstone if I qualified better, but I finally got qualifying down these last 7 days, and it's so good. I'm so glad to get the points down.
It's all to play for, and I can't wait for it, because Auto Club's going to be a thriller. Talk to us, though, about the strategy. You elected to split the second portion of the race basically in half. Were you ever concerned that you would get jumped in that second portion by Mike Rasmus, who was flying once he got clear of the traffic behind?
Yeah, I was really concerned, because I extra short-filled on that. I didn't just split it actually in half. I had to do 2 extra ticks of fuel on the second stop, and I thought it was going to be really close, and it was really close. I trying to remember. I also had Isaac spin right in front of me, and I had to slow down a little for it, and that worried me. Not, it's things that happen. It's not a bad, that bad. It's just had me worried.
And now I want to ask you about the defense that you had in the closing stages, because draft was powerful here. Were you just hoping that you wouldn't get past, or were you kind of biding your time and waiting for the right time to block aggressively? Because the reality is, if you got past with 3 laps to go, you could have made the move back in the last lap of the race. So it's all about playing those strategies coming to the checkered flag.
Honestly, I think Mike was faster than me. I think he was quicker, and I put it together in qualifying. And I didn't want to let him by, because if he got by, I don't think I would have had an opportunity to pass him back, because I do think he was quicker. On the second to last lap, I accidentally shifted into second instead of fourth, and that's when he got up my inside in the middle portion of the track, and that scared me. I thought before that he wasn't going to actually be able to put a move on me, but then I did that mistake, and he got real close.
Could have been a blown engine for you then with that mistake. I've done that before, trust me. You wouldn't have been the first, but I'm sure that would have been gut-wrenching to say the very least. Congratulations, Aaron. It is 28 points off the top of my head between you and Matt Taylor. Razmas is not much further behind. 3 cars, 1 championship. It comes down to Auto Club.
Oh yeah, I'm so excited. Thank you, man.
And that is a very excited, very relieved Aaron Morgan, driver of the 48 for Avatar Auto Racing. Next up on the podium, it was Mike Razmas, who almost got it done in the closing stages, just unable to affect the move around the outside of turn number 1. Mike, you had some incredible pace, but it was just qualifying that maybe put you a little bit further behind than you wanted to be. Once you got clear of the rest of the cars other than Aaron Morgan, after that first cycle of pit stops, it was fast lap after fast lap after fast lap for you. Talk to us about how in sync you felt with Road America today.
Yeah, it's such a great track. It's so fun to drive, and I think it kind of reminds me of some of those bigger, sort of higher speed with single corner tracks like Watkins Glen, and I love Watkins too. And so, just been practicing a lot and trying to keep my pace consistent. I know some guys are faster in the single lap, but for races, I like to find clean air and kind of do my own thing and see where I end up at the end.
And then in terms of the actual battle, we got confirmation from Aaron that one moment where you guys were side by side on the entry into turn 8, it was because he had shifted down into second. That was a great move, an opportunity for you. The other opportunity was on the exit of turn 1. What happened there just looked like you got a little bit too loose, a little bit too fast into the corner, and that compromised you down into turn 3.
Yeah, I had to try everything. It's really hard to pass under normal conditions here, let alone for the win. And I knew me and Aaron are, up in the points, and we both want to finish, so I wasn't going to try to jeopardize that. But I was still trying to race him hard, and he stayed really clean, and it was just really wild. And I'm glad we brought it home for sure.
Well, you guys put on a show. I think that sells it a little bit short as well. Now, Auto Club. Double points in a race where there is no margin for error. We've seen some huge incidents in those type of races. What's your mentality going into that one? Maximum attack, or you're going to try and bide your time until the closing stages and make a charge up through the field?
Really, either one. I think I'm going to just go with how I feel that day. I mean, if Matt has an issue, there's a chance me and Aaron could get the championship. So that would be great. But I also know those oval pack races are pretty dicey, and if you don't take your time and be patient, you can end up in the wall.
Well, it's all up now to that race in Auto Club. It's going to be a long wait. You've got a full month to ruminate on that and to think through strategy, but can't wait for what we're going to see. And congratulations, Mike. Great drive today. Hopefully we'll see you a champion in a couple of weeks' time.
Thanks so much.
So that was Mike Razmas, and just in the nick of time, we are joined by the final driver on the podium, the Canadian David Sirois, who is now standing by with Andrew Kinsella.
David, you put the car on the outside of the front row today, and you were up in that lead pack for most of the beginning of the race, but then on that first pit cycle, things sort of went a little bit sideways for you. Just talk us through, especially that pit exit there, and what happened there.
Yeah, first I want to say congratulations to the winner and to the podium, and I'm really sorry for O'Brien. I'm not sure which fault it was. I was on the outside as much as I could, and but I think I was just a little wide, and he was outside, and we touched just a little bit. I'm so sorry for him. Well, the race went well up to the first pit. I think my pit was a little longer. I don't know exactly why, but I think I put more fuel than the other guys, so I just wanted to do a quick splash at the end of the race. And that's where I lost the contact, and I came back on them when everybody pit second time, but I was too far back. I think I was a few tenths slower than the other guys.
Yeah, and you mentioned the pit stop because it was definitely interesting to watch the differing fuel cycles. Now, just can you tell the viewers out there what it's like when you know that you have that maybe higher fuel load and you're losing that time? How do you try to keep yourself in the race and keep pushing as hard as you can when you see the cars in front of you just going off into the distance a little bit, even if you know it's just because of the fuel?
Yeah, I just have to concentrate on my driving and go as fast as I can. I feel the car it's not really different. It's just a little bit slower, not much, but enough to lose the draft and create a big gap with the other guys. But you have to stay focused and concentrate on your own driving and whatever the other guys are doing.
And now, looking ahead towards the finale at Auto Club, obviously you are embroiled in a major battle here for that fourth position with Chris Fowler and Michael O'Brien. So looking ahead towards that oval race, obviously you've gotten much stronger on the ovals as the year has gone on. What's your strategy and your approach for that race as you try to secure that fourth position in the standings?
Well, I'm definitely not a good driver on ovals, and I'm still struggling in dirty air, and I really don't know what to expect in that race. So I will do the best I can and stay out of trouble. That's the main thing, I think, on the ovals, and stay out of trouble and be there at the end on the lead lap, somewhere in the top 10, to hope for a good finish.
Awesome. Well, I think you're selling yourself a little bit short, because we've seen in the last few oval races that you've acquitted yourself just fine. But good luck to you in this finale. And Arjuna, it was a solid drive from David, but really a fantastic race all around. The top 4 positions within 6 seconds of the lead of the race. Overall, just a fantastic race that we watched here today.
Yeah, and I hope David's not too hard on himself, because the reality is Michael O'Brien, lives all the way around the world. So that's one of the unfortunate physical realities of racing here online, is speed of light is what it is. There's only so much he could do. He left plenty of room, was on the apex of the corner. Don't necessarily think that was his fault. I'm sure he will not be too thrilled with it, because no driver wants to make contact, but ultimately he does get the podium. One race to go, Andrew. One race. Started back in March, but we'll close it out in 1 month's time. That's going to be a long time for Matt Taylor, for Aaron Morgan, for Mike Rasmussen to be thinking about how Auto Club will play out for them.
Absolutely, and I think the key for them is to not overthink it, because each of them have been really strong all year long. Each of them know how to drive both road and oval, and on this final oval, I think each of them need to go in there with a clear mind, knowing exactly what they need to do, and just treat it like every other race, even though it might not be. And the goal for each of them will be to come away with the win, not only in the race, but in the championship. And I think each of them are capable of it. It's just who's going to be able to perform on the day. And I think that it's going to be, no matter what, a fantastic finale here in 1 month's time.
And before we wrap things up here on the HyperX post-race show, let's get confirmation of how the points are looking right now. 805 points. That's what Matt Taylor has to defend heading in to the final race. Aaron Morgan, 28 points behind. Mike Rasmussen, 49 points behind. There's not just a battle, though, for first, second, and third David Sirot, because of the misfortune for Michael O'Brien. Now finds himself 12 points clear in the battle for fourth. Chris Fowler's disappointing 2021 continues with his own issues. He's back in sixth now. Going to be very difficult for him unless David Sirot does struggle on the ovals. Not feeling the most confident, but we know just how quick Sirot can be, especially in qualifying, putting himself in good position to work his way through the double point adrenaline-filled high-speed showdown to close things off for 2021. Before that, though, we've got a full month to wait, to ruminate, to think about what 2021 has held for us and what more stories, twists and turns are left to be written. With that said, though, it's time to thank everyone that makes this happen for the Lionheart Racing Series. The SimExperience AccuForce Pro V2 is the premier professional simulation racing steering system. The key to its incredible realism is the groundbreaking direct drive motor control system, providing a driving experience that's second only to the real thing. For more information on the entire SimExperience ecosystem, visit simexperience.com. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com, and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15 for 15% off all orders. For sim racers, the Butt Kicker Gamer 2 or Simulation Kit adds the missing driver-to-car connection, bringing more realism to your sessions. By accurately responding to in-game audio, you can feel the track like never before, providing increased vehicle handling and faster lap times. Are you ready for the most immersive experience in sim racing? For more information, visit thebuttkicker.com and don't forget to use promo code LION2021 for 20% off all orders. Minus 273 is the premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of a breathable poly spandex. Whether you're a kart or a sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz and don't forget to use the promo code Minus 273 LHRS15 for 15% off all orders. Looking for entertaining sim racing content? Look no further than the DMLC Racing channel. Follow former Lionheart Retro Series Driver of the Year and two-time Triple Crown winner in the Retro Series in 2021, Mark Cohn's racing escapades as he battles for wins and avoids wrecks with cat-like reflexes, all while providing commentary sure to make you laugh, cry, or both. Follow along by subscribing to the DMLC Racing channel on YouTube and like his Facebook page at the DMLC Racing channel. And to learn more about the partners that make all this possible, visit LionheartRacingSeries.com, where you can find up-to-date information on our partners, as well as the 3 competitions the Lionheart sanctioning body puts on. It's been a busy week of Lionheart competition. On Monday, it was the Speedway Series. Yesterday, the Indy cars rumbled from the Motor City. Today, the Lotus 79s put on a show at America's National Park of Speed. It's going to be a full month before we're back in action in the Lotus 79. But it's not that long before a championship showdown in the Lionheart Speedway Series. Join us on Monday, November 29th, 10:35 p.m. Eastern, 7:35 p.m. Pacific for the championship showdown from the Auto Club Speedway. It's all to play for. Plenty of title rivals still in with a chance of grabbing the inaugural Lionheart Speedway Series championship. A reminder as well to keep up to date on all things Lionheart on social media, while ESTV has you covered for your esports needs. For your sim racing action, look no further than RaceBot TV. Hit the red button to subscribe to us and hit the bell next to it to get notified every single time we go live with a great sim racing series that we get to cover. For now though, it's time to take a breath, to relax and prepare for what the Golden State has in store in championship showdowns across of Lionheart competition. On behalf of the entire team at RaceBot TV, for Dougie Beard providing our cameras for today's action, for my co-commentator Andrew Kinsella, my name is Arjuna Kankipati. What a race we witnessed today in the Sim Experience Grand Prix of Road America, presented by Carnox. Aaron Morgan wins back-to-back races. He brings the championship down to the wire. Thank you for joining us on RaceBot TV. For now, though, so long and goodbye.